Welcome to the first digital map webinar related to the 2021 summer digital map workshop that was held. This is going to be ongoing over the course of this year and maybe even into next year, where we are going to try each time to deal with a topic that teachers are interested in, that they feel they need maybe some fine tuning on, or a new topic they want to explore that they haven't had time to explore. So that'll be kind of the gist of what we're doing. But the most important thing is, what do teachers who took the workshop, when they went back into the classroom and attempted to implement their assignment from the summer workshop, how did it work out? So we're fortunate tonight to have two teachers with us: Julia Rydberg, who teaches high school in New Richmond, Wisconsin, at the high school level, obviously, and she will be discussing how she modified two geo inquiries. And then Rurik Johnson, who is a middle school teacher in science at Plymouth Middle School in Plymouth, Minnesota, put together a research project incorporating Survey 123, a web map, I believe, and he's got a couple other web apps that are really kind of neat that he added into it, where the images were brought in as a part of what he was doing and displaying after the kids did their project. So Rurik, what grade level are you teaching?
Oh, I teach 8th grade.
8th grade. Okay.
Yep.
Man after my own heart. So I'm going to let you take control of the screen, and you can explain. This is a class research project.
Well, it's more, to me, it was more of an introduction to the tools that we're going to be using. And yeah, I'll just kind of pick it up from here. So yeah, I kind of viewed it as an introduction to these online tools about mapping and things like that. And also, it was part of an introductory unit. So I'm just going to see, it's been a while since I've navigated Zoom. So let me see how I can do this. And where is the share screen now? So I need to find, how come
It's at the very bottom of your Zoom window.
Yeah, I found that.
But got that?
Click on it. Usually it's just the default, whatever it's got highlighted in blue, just you should, in the lower right should say share. Then you should.
Okay, well, I'll try that. Let's see here. All right, I got that. Let's see if we can minimize that. And
yeah, I can see your tab there. Yeah.
All right. There we go. Are you seeing spheres of our school campus?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
All right, so like I said, this is kind of an introductory to the various tools through Esri here. And also, basically, it was an introductory unit that I think I did. I can't even remember when I did it. It was like in September here. So I teach earth science, but I take it from an earth systems approach. And basically, the unit was, how do scientists view the world? And we kind of start with by making observations, and then observations kind of lend themselves to asking questions. And then they kind of go from there. And the unit also kind of looks at introduction to systems thinking. And we do little things like looking at a little simple system and basically come out of some basic questions like, what are the parts of the system? How do the parts interact? What causing what kind of change? What's the purpose? So I kind of tie that all together a little bit with this spheres of our school campus. And it really kind of started the previous year when we were all doing distance learning. Because normally I would take the kids out in the schoolyard and basically say, hey, I'm going to give you a little index card. And we're going to kind of walk around here, and I want you to do some observing. And I did kind of format it in the sense I want you to make some observations about the air and the land and the water and the life around. So they go around and they, they're doing a lot of observing, but seldom kind of documenting it. But a year ago, we were kind of all forced to do these things at home. And so I said, I kind of had a little introduction to survey 123. So I kind of did something a year ago where I asked them, first of all, to go out and find their favorite spot. And basically built a little survey, 123, basically on their favorite spot, and they followed up some questions just to get them accessing our, organizational account and just get familiar with the cell phone and using that as a way of recording some data. And we went from there. And then I basically followed that up with another survey, 123 one. Well, go back to your favorite spot and let's do some recording of what you're observing and what questions come up with it. And basically went from there. So it started kind of a year ago, and then I took the summer workshop here, and it kind of developed into this. And like I said before, it is a lesson I've done before, where we've gone out and we've taken basically, index cards, and they do that. And then they used to come back and they'd work in groups, and then they'd kind of make a poster of their observations where they'd share their observations. They share their questions. And again, I was kind of introducing air, land, water, life. But in Earth systems thinking, we tend to think of the land as being what we call the geosphere, the air, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere is the water sources, and basically life is what we call the biosphere. So I kind of pulled it all together with this one here. So before I kind of go into the parts of it here, I did with the lesson here, I kind of put this through the summer. And basically the day before we were going to use this, I just gave them a photocopy of our base map that we're going to work with. And basically just went out as a large group. We kind of walked around the perimeter of the school grounds just to orient ourselves using a little map and saying, okay, so like in the back, there's like a little berm that is built up. We kind of walked up it there. It kind of divides us, our schoolyard, with a little housing development. Okay, where are we guys on this? And then we kind of go here just to kind of acquaint them, working with a map and kind of locating them. Okay. So then the next day I did take them out and we went through this, and I had 5 classes that I went through each of this. So basically, if I get the right mouse here, it's kind of broken into parts. I do kind of introduce what is science, the importance of observations, and kind of introduce basically, hey, we're going to talk about life, land, water, and we're going to start calling them the biosphere, the geosphere, the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere. Little introduction to the various systems that make up this larger system called the Earth system. And so then this was basically here, enter our observations. And this was actually the survey 123, which I didn't activate, but we'll activate now. All right. And basically the kids kind of keep it just first names only, and the date, and then the various classes. And then have them kind of think, okay, what are you looking at? Are you looking at land, water, life? And kind of focus on, okay, which sphere is that? And then I did also want to think about, is it like a little part? Is it like an object that's part of the system? Or is it kind of a process, kind of an action taking place or an event? Kind of get them start to classify and introduce some of the systems thinking. And basically in science here, it's kind of, what do you notice? What do you wonder about? Okay. And so the little described part was, okay, what do you notice? And kind of focus on, trying to use all your senses here. And then take out the photo, take a photo with your camera there and see if you can kind of locate it. Okay. All right. So we got this here, and I got some people here. Let's see if I can move this. And then just kind of submit. All right, on that. And then somewhere along the way, and I think it's probably some from the summer here, I had noticed that, hey, other people have done story maps and kind of more kind of a self-paced where they would implement kind of more of a formal assessment here. And I didn't want to make it a formal assessment. And so I thought, hey, we could use Google Docs or Google Forms, and Google Forms could be used, in a quiz format if you wanted to. But I thought, let's just record some of the traditional follow-up questions I had when I used more of a paper pencil version of this, was basically, okay, on your observations, okay, which one did you do? All right, we can kind of go from there. And the idea was, hey, most of the observations you relied on were sight, and kind of looked at, all right, some of these other questions we're kind of going into, can you kind of pick a couple of the spheres and see how they might interact with one another and what questions you kind of pose with? It was more just to get them kind of extend a little bit more than, what do you notice? What do you wonder about? Can we make some connections between things here? So that was this little section there. I said, I really wanted to see, could I embed in the story map here a Google form? And to kind of entice people with it was this little web map app, and I can't remember it. I think it's called the attachment viewer. And we kind of set it up here. And so you're looking kind of down on our school campus, and I did kind of color code everything here. I kind of remember here, the green was kind of like the biosphere, the blue was kind of like the hydrosphere, the red was kind of for the geosphere, and the gray was kind of for the fourth one, I'm kind of slipping right here. But everyone kind of wanted, hey, I see other pictures here, I want to add my own pictures here. And so you can kind of zoom out, and I kind of live off right there. And if you kind of click on one, you should be able to bring it up. All right, so example, like this was Sam. Okay, I think this was a test one that I did here. They recorded the geosphere. Okay, I'm looking at a process, some sort of event, and physical weather. All right, or else you could look on this one here. Okay, Lucas made this one here. All right, and you could kind of do that. So we could do a little bit, some analysis with this tool here. But the impetus really was, hey, I'm going to take a snap. I want to kind of share the snapshot, my observations with other students here. That was kind of that. And then I was kind of introduced to the dashboard. And I thought I'd kind of build this one here. And so kind of kept it simple, basically the total count, and basically the observations made by the various people. And you could zoom in and it should adjust different counts. And the intention was to use this as a follow-up from making our observations with a classroom discussion and just kind of introduce some spatial analysis. Like, hey, there's a cluster of blue dots here. What was blue again? Oh, that was basically, the hydrosphere. All right. And this is kind of a popular spot because we have a stormwater pond that you're kind of looking down at this point here, which you can probably see some of the pictures there. And that was the intent of the dashboard, was to kind of spark a little introduction to spatial analysis there. And that's basically what I did, was kind of took an existing one that I did based on using old index card and kind of enticed engagement by using your cell phone, and kind of put it in a little story map format and add kind of tests. Hey, can we, if we future ones, can we make it more kind of a formal assessment by adding a Google form if you wanted to from there. So I'm just looking at the questions here. How long did it take me to put this together? To be honest, I honestly don't remember. I know we did it kind of during the workshop week. And sometimes when I get into a project, I kind of really get into it and go from there. But the actual time that it took, I don't recall how long it was, to be honest. Did I have a couple problems with it a little bit initially with the web map app and the dashboard? Yeah, and thanks to Kylie and others, we kind of worked on it, and I discovered what I did, and we got it going. And that's kind of nice when we work collaboratively, we can rely on one another and we can ask questions, and we can all help one another. Kind of put it together here. And how did the students react to it? They really enjoyed it. They basically, like I said, like day one, we kind of took the lay of the land, kind of day two, kind of let them there. And they were kind of all scattered around, and I kind of walked around and I kind of quizzed them there, but they were there kind of making their observations. And sometimes they'd buddy up and kind of do things together a little bit. And some of the challenges I kind of saw was actually trying to work and record their observation where they are on the base map from their cell phone. And, you know, I did go back and clean up some of the data a little bit because I saw some people were kind of, hey, I'm on the roof of our building. Okay. So they thought they found the school at least, you know, but kind of narrowing it down and kind of the zooming in on their little cell phone was kind of a bit of a problem. So I was kind of thinking, if I do this again next time, you know, I'd still like the actual physical lay of the land, kind of walking it with the little base map, kind of photocopy, kind of orient yourself, but maybe have another little activity that, hey, kind of maybe like a, what they call it, a little scavenger hunt kind of thing, where they kind of have to find certain things and have a little practice working on the little phone and locating where
Mhm.
things are on that case, and then go from here on that. And then, to be honest, when I did the follow-up there, it kind of depends on the class. Or I didn't do a formal assignment with the little geospatial analysis. It was more kind of a wrap-up, kind of a big, large group discussion. But I think I'd follow up a little bit with something a little bit more formal about, hey, do this as a large group, and then independently kind of work with the data map yourself and what would you record. So is that my cue to kind of wrap things up there?
That was my timer going off.
All right. I
Say,
know you get teachers
Rick,
who only can talk.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love this whole concept. You know, when I was teaching social studies, I mean, you know, what you're basically doing here is reinforcing and building kids' understanding of a concept like atmosphere, biosphere, by some real world examples. They get in the whole habit of doing the classification thing. And I just think that's great. I think you're aware, but if you click that little icon in the upper right-hand corner of the dashboard, it will
You
open
know,
it.
my
It'll,
participants' photos are on there. If I could get rid of my participant photo, I can't. I'm sharing the screen, but I can't.
oh, you
feel-
can't see it. Okay. But if they
Oh, let's
click
see
on,
here.
I can see it on mine. It'll open that up in a separate tab.
Yeah,
So,
I know you
yeah,
could expand them out a little
yeah,
bit,
you can.
but for the purpose here, sharing the participants are
yep.
kind of covering it up on my part. So, yeah,
Anybody else have a question? I love this. Beautiful job of putting everything together.
I think that's one of the keys with the story maps is kind of putting it all into one little place and allow you to kind of a natural navigation and go from there.
Does somebody else have a question?
Sure. Charlie does.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Hey, this is really nice. One of the things that I really liked about this is that you gave people essentially an opportunity to practice something and then get into it for the full experience of it. Were they out in the field doing data entry on just their phones?
Yep.
Or on a Chromebook or something like that? Okay.
Actually, what I kind of discovered a year before when we were all kind of distance learning, they only had, I tried to, some kid, well, I got to remember, I deal with 8th graders and not everyone has a phone.
Yep.
And so I found out, okay, if you don't have a phone, you have a Chromebook, you do that. And they would kind of go out and they kind of lose their connection at home. Okay.
Yep.
But when I was doing this in our schoolyard, basically everyone was kind of using the phone. And I basically kind of said, hey, if you don't have a phone, you could buddy up with someone and just, put, Tom and Sue as your name on that. So there were actually, everyone was out just with their cell phones here. And it's,
Okay.
and we didn't have any Chromebooks out on the day that we did this. But they could. They could actually do that.
Yeah.
I just really wanted them the idea is basically down the road is kind of develop some of their own investigation with that. And so they could always, they got their phone with them and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I always found that asking students to learn one new part of a whole big process at a time was the faster way for me to get the bulk of them to understand it. And that's what it sounds like you were doing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the question that I was asking earlier, asking Julia, just thinking about how familiar were they with some of the tools and things like that. So that's nice. This is a nice project. I like it.
Yeah,
I'm
it was-
intrigued also that you had a 3-to-1 apart versus a process, and that's almost what I would have guessed, that the process was took a little bit more thinking about things rather
Mhm.
than the part.
Yeah, basically that's our course is actually then, like I said, this is part of the introduction there and finding the objects there, but how the objects are connected and what's causing change in the process. That's coming down. That's what my whole year of Earth Science will be. So
Good beginning.
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's a good
great.
beginning. And yeah, the kids liked it. And unfortunately, being in Minnesota, being outside and kind of stuff like that, we're kind of getting back indoors. So I've got some plans for the spring of the year, kind of hopefully with some further investigations, but we'll work with it inside of the winter here a little bit before we go back out.